What were we in previous lives? A king, a soldier, or a subject, whether a sage and a scientist or a lover? Buddhism believes that no matter who we are, there is no difference. The important thing is that we were suffering. Because the basis of life is dependence, being in hardship, and suffering. As long as we are troubled in life, we will suffer continuously, and the only way to end this suffering is awakening. But what does awakening mean from the point of view of Buddhism? What is the world? The images that we see in a vague and mysterious way since we were born. None of us know exactly how to live and what to do with this strange world. Because it seems we have only one chance. In this channel, we seek to discover the secrets. Hidden secrets that few people talk about in everyday life. Subscribe to us and press the bell icon. The summary of Buddha's teachings is that after death, we are born in another body and enter this world as new human beings. And after the death of that body, we return to this world in another body, and this exhausting cycle repeats over and over again. Buddha believes that the nature of this cycle is suffering. You are hurt. We start suffering from the moment we are born. With increasing age and moving towards old age, suffering continues, and the aging process itself is suffering. When we get sick, we are still suffering. Buddha believed that sadness is suffering, and when we are disappointed or sad, we are actually suffering. Even in love, there is great suffering. Because our distance from what we want is torment. It means that we are always far away from the things or people we are interested in and we want, and this is pain. And even the link with what we don't like. This is also suffering, and finally, every kind of dependence is painful. In analyzing the suffering that Buddha talks about, it is necessary to mention the test of karma. As most of us know, karma means that the current life we have is the result of what we have done in the past life, and the repeated cycle of human life is what the Buddha called samsara. Buddha believes that the loop continues to infinity and these successive births are the cause of suffering and fatigue of humans. Unless a person reaches nirvana. In this case, he gets relief from suffering. Buddha thinks that actually, the cause of the pain is thirst and attachment. It means human attachment that causes rebirth and suffering. This chain is always repeating and starts from ignorance and ends in suffering. If a person has acted out of ignorance in his previous lives, he remains in the system of samsara and continues to suffer. Etymologically, samsara means permanent wandering. But when did this wandering start, and how long will it last? Buddha says about this, "O wayfarers, the beginning of the wandering of beings is from the beginning and forever. Beings who are immersed in ignorance because of their intense thirst are distracted and wandering beings. But is it possible to get out of suffering? According to Buddha, after knowing the truth of suffering, we must find and know the origin of suffering. That is, the same thirst that, from the Buddha's point of view, causes continuous reincarnations. In other words, the origin of suffering is desire and lust. Thirst itself is divided into three categories. One is introduced by the thirst of the palate, which is the desire for the pleasures of our senses. Then he defines the thirst for being as the desire for eternal life and speaks of the thirst of non-being that leads to rebirth and suffering. Buddha believes that after finding the origin of suffering, one should know the possibility of getting rid of suffering. It is possible to get rid of it, but only if the thirst is gone. And finally, by knowing the truth of freedom from suffering, you can reach a state where there is no thirst, and that is called nirvana. In its description, It is said that in this state, a person extinguishes the fire of all lusts in himself, and as a result, he is saved from suffering and distress. When the sense of sight sees something, the seeker does not desire it. When the seeker hears a sound with his sense of hearing and feels a pleasant smell with his sense of smell and experiences a taste with his sense and touches something with his hands, and knows something by thinking, but he has no desire for them. And he has no intention of them. By mastering his senses, he is freed from thirst, and finally, his sense of thirst is extinguished. So what should be done practically now? Buddha believed that man should love people with the right intention. An intention free from lust, hatred, and annoyance. Know people's pain and speak without lies, deception, and insults. After that, you should act according to your words and even experience sexual relations only with your wife and lover. Also, he should earn money in the right way. And he should focus on his body because with meditation, the wall between mind and body collapses. And this makes him free from the prison of perception and feeling. But what exactly did the Buddha do with us? Accepting suffering and hardship is one of the first steps that makes a person more responsible. Something that should be accepted instead of running away and denying it. Also, in the Quran, it is said that God created man in hardship and suffering. That is, suffering and hardship are inseparable parts of human existence. Similarly, the origin of suffering is in human attachments. A topic that is also expressed in various spiritual teachings. The cause of human suffering is the world and what amuses him in the world. Finally, Buddha promises us freedom from suffering. He says that man can reach a stage where there is no more suffering and become one with the essence of existence. But according to Buddha, is life based on suffering? Can we tolerate the pessimism that comes from this point of view? If this suffering is supposed to be eternal, then what should be done with this despair? All these questions are raised, and no answer has been found for them yet. Why is it that in Buddhism, the truth of the world is so full of suffering, but in Christianity, the foundation of life is love? And it is said in the Quran that God created the world from light and left guidance of light for humans. Is it just a matter of getting rid of this world? Isn't there a lesson and purpose in these sufferings we take? Shouldn't we fight against the various factors that produce suffering? In this video, we discussed the thought of Buddha and Buddhism, that life from his point of view is suffering, and this suffering causes us to remain in prison and repeat ourselves. We have seen what the way out of suffering and the ultimate goal in life can be from Buddha's point of view. Finally, we asked questions that made us think again.